Hello, and welcome back to 950 Club Podcast, an anime and manga podcast. Today, we're going to be finishing up part 2 of our fan special with Vivy, Florite's Eyes song. Check it out right now.
And now the next show we'll be talking about is Vivy Florite Eyes Song. Now this was a show that I liked this show a lot. It was one of I told Jack this was my favorite sci-fi show of last year. And because there's so few sci-fi shows, I really paid attention to this one. And it really, really reminded me a lot of Ghost in the Shell.
Yeah, eerily close to Ghost in the Shell.
Yeah, but in a different focus.
Very much so. And that was part of my stubbornness of the show, because I was like, no, it's not. It's not that close to it. It's not that close. It is.
It's very much. But I like the approach where Ghost in the Shell is very much a procedural. It's about military cops. This is very different because the protagonist is an android that is focused on music.
Yeah, and almost finding her own meaning. Ghost in the Shell's own meaning with the major. She's trying to find the answers that she's seeking. And the title itself, Ghost in the Shell. What does that ultimately mean? It means your soul in your own body.
Yeah.
And Vivy, the main character, or Diva, she is essentially trying to figure out these questions.
Yeah.
And this is like the first episode, because you don't get that sense of it just yet.
Well, her quest is to make everyone happy with her singing.
Yeah.
To sing from her heart, and to make everyone happy with her singing. That's her main focus. So let's get into the basics of the show. This is an original production.
Yes.
This isn't based on a light novel or a manga.
To my dismay, because I was looking for that afterwards.
Well, they have done an adaptation. They've done an adaptation light novel and an adaptation manga.
Okay.
But this is original. This is original creation.
Yes.
The approach is very different from other sci-fi shows,
Especially Ghost in the Shell.
Yeah. So what's happened here is that the main focus of the show is humans and androids coexisting, and they can't.
Yep.
Is the general consensus of the show, because there's a war. It starts out with the first few scenes of the show are very violent and brutal.
Extremely.
Yeah, you get this war between humans and androids. Androids have decided to destroy humanity.
Yeah.
And that's how this show starts.
Think of Elfin Light, think of Neon Genesis, like sudden violence, horrific violence. And when I initially watched it, I wasn't ready for it. And
no, I was kind of surprised too. I was like, what am I watching? Because the scenes of violence are set in almost like a Disneyland theme park.
Yeah, and unsettling. And
yeah,
it's not like too over top with like heads being exploded and stuff, but it's cutaway scenes.
It's not gruesome.
Yeah,
it's not gruesome, but it is
similar to Attack on Titan. Attack on Titan does that too.
The level of violence caught me off guard.
Yeah,
and I think it's supposed to.
Yeah.
I think it's supposed to, because it's supposed to say, hey, it's kind of a shock to the system at the beginning of the show to say, hey, what comes next doesn't reflect this, but these are the stakes.
Yeah, you get that sense too, like, okay, man, that was rough. But then all of a sudden, you see this beautiful idol-like person just singing her heart out.
Well, I want to talk about the creators. This is a very ambitious show.
Extremely.
Because this essentially shows the entire history of human and AI relations. This show encapsulates. It covers 100 years worth of history,
Also,
future history. Yeah.
in a similar link with 86 we just covered, because 86 is also 100 over 100 years into the future from our current timeline as well.
Yeah. Well, Vivi takes uh, place later in this century, but the incidents that we described in the opening take place 100 years after her creation.
Yes, yes. And then when you see her, singing her heart out, it's to an empty crowd and things like that. And you wouldn't think like this would be like a time journey thing,
No.
but like I was mentioning to Edwin before we recorded, I really like the future where it shows where it's empty. Like you just don't know where your time and place and frame mind is at. The advances can overwhelm you. So I think it was like the creators pretty much like focusing on the quieter side of the future.
Well, I think that one of the questions at the heart of this show is, what does it mean to be human?
Yeah.
What does it mean to be alive? And what does it mean to have, what is the human heart?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like with Edwin mentioning how this show is super ambitious, because with the aspects of the future as they are, it pretty much dives into this morality question, how we handle AI right now,
Yeah.
currently. And with 86, like we just discussed, how we handle warfare, like technology is also kind of like a key factor for our advancement.
But it's also about the questions that the show raises.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, let's go into, so what comes next is the history of AI and Android development.
Yeah.
And the difficulties in programming AIs and these robots, these androids, to do multiple tasks. And so what they decide is to give each android a specific task. They're designed to either teach music or teach you how to drive,
Or ring up tickets or serve food.
yeah, or to take care of your child, but that's it. They
Yep.
don't multitask. They're given specific purposes when they're created. And Vivi is the first autonomous android.
Yeah, and she's not too robotic, and with her performance especially, you would think like she's just a normal girl.
Well, she's designed to look and act as human as possible.
Yep.
You can still tell that she is a machine. She's an android. There are things that she doesn't understand because her main focus is singing.
Yeah.
And because her creators endowed her with that mission of, sing from your heart and make everyone happy with your singing.
Yeah.
Which is very ambiguous.
Yeah, but it's also really, really cute.
It is. It is. Vivi's kind of adorable.
Yeah, because similar to, I can't help but mention this one. It reminds me a lot of a sense of Bookworm, that singular obsession. Mine
Yes.
with her books, Vivy with her singing and performances.
That's definitely there. That's absolutely there.
Yeah.
Like she's just like, don't get in the way of me singing.
Yep.
Yep. Like I will punch you in the face if you get in the way of my singing.
Yeah, and she also has a little fan, and she checks out her shows, and and like I mentioned earlier with that,
Well, she gives her name too.
that too.
Because Diva's her name.
Yeah.
That's her name. So her first fan, Momoka, actually gives her the name Vivi, which is from a fairy tale book that Momoka is reading to her little sister.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's these little things, these little details when she mentions her little sister that start to play out throughout the show, because the show covers 100 years worth of history.
Yeah. What we mean with this timeline, 100 years, what does happen in 100 years? This is advanced as it is.
So we have to go back and explain, there's a scene that's mixed in with the AI war that happens 100 years from now.
Yep.
There is a scientist, Dr. Matsumoto, that essentially knows who Diva is and sends her essentially data, which becomes the AI Matsumoto.
Yeah.
And this AI has one mission: to stop this war from happening.
This robot that comes from the future, similar to Terminator, he just wants to update to speed what is going on. And Vivy's like, yo, I'm just a singer. This is out of my scope.
Well, she feels that he's a virus that has invaded her
Yeah,
space.
the trust issues are apparent.
The trust issues start from the beginning.
Oh, yeah.
These two are the biggest odd couple you could imagine.
Literally.
Yeah.
And to ease her in, Matsumoto, who is this floating cube, he decides to costume up in a little teddy bear outfit.
Well, he invades the teddy bear that was a gift to her, and it upsets her greatly.
And it's very cute because, Vivy, of course, is an android, but these feelings are apparent.
Yeah, she spends a lot of time trying to chase the teddy bear around the room. And he's not having it.
Yeah, and it's part of the charm of the show because after a very violent beginning, you get to this futuristic, which is really nice. I would love to be
wholesome.
I like to be in that Android Disney park.
Yeah.
So these two things come to play with the time aspect of it. You're like, okay, this is straight up going to be a good time.
After that beginning, because you get that, all right, this is a sci-fi show, this is a time travel show. And then you get Diva.
Yeah.
And you're like, what?
Yes.
I wasn't ready for that. It was like, okay, how is this going to work out? Because this isn't like Ghost in the Shell where you have the major who is military.
And it keeps a singular tone.
Right.
Rarely any humor.
You have Vivy who is a songstress.
Yes.
That's her focus. I don't want to say she's not concerned. She's concerned.
Well, she's baffled.
She's baffled because this is outside of her experience.
Yeah, and her programs.
Yeah, and she's like, I have to sing. You don't understand. She's not with this. She's like, she has to sing. She has to make it to the main stage. She has to grow her audience.
Yeah.
She is focused on being Diva and getting to where she needs to be to make everyone happy with her singing.
Yeah.
So she has no time for this ridiculousness.
Yeah. And her tone's pretty straightforward. It's like, no. Like in her robotic voice, it's clear as day, but it's also kind of like her tone is very like, no.
Yeah, she's not having it.
No.
Matsumoto, he can go take a hike. Yeah,
but Masemoto is very assistant because he was mentioned that his creator literally brought her into his purpose for this purpose to save the world.
So he tells her in the most sassiest way possible. He's like, yeah, you were just sitting in a museum 100 years from now because you were one of the first androids and you were the only one of your kind left in that time period. Everyone else was more advanced, and so he's kind of a jerk.
He's a fast talking jerk, and that's the beauty of the show because with Vivy being very straightforward, very elegant, you got this very sassy robot.
Yeah,
you're like telling her, "Hey, save the world, honey."
Well, he's arrogant too because he feels like I'm an advanced AI, and
well, advanced to his own faults. Let's put it that way.
Definitely, it's definitely a character flaw for him.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where, like I said, you're jumping into this adventure. It's going to be a good old time, but not necessarily.
Well, I like this show because there's a definite back and forth. You have the action, but a lot of the focus is on the people, the characters, and their choices, and the choices that they make, and how those choices affect history and time and what their motivations are.
Yeah.
So Vivy reluctantly decides to join this mission to save the future.
Yeah.
She doesn't want to do this.
Nope.
She does not want to do this. He recruits her into this, and she's her own person. And I like that. I like that a lot from this character.
Yeah.
I don't think that the show would have been as strong as it is if she wasn't.
No. That's pretty much like the lore of the show because like you get that exchange. You get little bits and pieces where Vivy's questioning her morality and stuff like that, but she turns out to be a total badass.
She does, and it's because of her interactions with humans.
Yeah, and Matsumoto.
Well, Matsumoto, I think, is almost a detriment to himself because it's like, he kind of treats Diva, and later when she decides she wants to be Vivy, he kind of treats her like a subordinate. Like that's beneath him.
Yeah. And it's just that's what he's programmed to do. He doesn't want to bear with it.
That's his personality. That's not his programming. That's his personality. Like we said, he's a jerk.
Yep.
And he's like, oh, this isn't gonna work. You're to this and you're to that. And she's just trying. And there's a moment. So in the first mission, and what their mission is called the Singularity Project.
Yeah.
because there's these moments throughout history that alter the chain, the course of events. And Matsumoto's mission is to make sure that those moments in time play out differently so that they won't end up with essentially the AI apocalypse.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the first moment is they have to rescue a politician, and Vivy saves him. It's one of the moments in the first episode where Vivy comes to understand that Matsumoto may actually be who he is, and what he says might be true. So she rescues this politician, Yoichi Akiwa,
Yeah.
from an explosion.
In the theme park, Nina Land.
Yeah, Neoland. And so Matsumoto reveals to her that he is creating a naming law for the androids so that to stop discrimination against them and to give them a sense of identity.
Yeah.
He's not doing it for the best of reasons. For him, it's to gain political clout for him and his company.
Pretty much.
But he dies in the original timeline, and it's his death that moves along the naming law. So Matsumoto wants to stop that by saving his life.
Yeah. And that's the fascinating thing about the show. Like every mission, there's something about it where it's super critical, but it's almost in a weird way, like, why are we doing this? Because isn't that supposed to be good? So, like, with the naming law itself for these androids, yeah, like if I was like named a certain name, like 1, 2, 3, 4, your function is to do this. Yeah, I want to have my own identity here.
Yeah.
So, like, Vivy is pretty much like battling that own outcome in a weird way, reluctantly. So,
Well, each one of these incidences is very personal
extremely.
to Vivy. And that's, I think, one of the strong things about the show.
Yeah.
Is as she deals with each one of these singularity points, each one of these moments. And that's what the show covers. The show doesn't cover the in-between years. It chooses these arcs, each arc, which is a few episodes each.
1 or 2, maybe 3. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's a short season. Yeah.
Yeah. Depending on what they want to cover. It was actually a long season for anime because it's 13 episodes, which is more than the standard 12.
Oh, yeah. Don't get me wrong,
Yeah.
but the arcs themselves are like not like movie level kind of thing.
Well, no, I think it was covered the way the Ghost in the Shell did, where they had like a central case,
Yeah, true.
like the
And
Laughing Man.
Yeah, and Psychopaths as well.
Yeah,
kinda.
and then it was split up.
Yep.
Vivy does the same thing where you have each point in time that Matsumoto is trying to change is covered over an arc, which lasts either 2 episodes to 3 episodes, depending on how involved it is.
Yeah.
And this first arc, I believe, is like almost 3 episodes. In the arc, she has to save
This politician.
this politician, and that's where she runs into Toke, the terrorist faction that wants to destroy AI and AI technology.
Yeah. And those are the bad guys. And starting off, and you're like, okay, simple, just save the guy, save the day kind of thing, which she kind of does. But in this very crucial first couple episodes, you get to see the weird, humane side of Vivy because as they're escaping with the politician, the building's collapsing because the Matsumoto had to explode the building. Was it Matsumoto?
Well, the terrorists have
terrorists
sent bombs. They've sent bombs throughout the building to destroy the building, to kill the politician and destroy the building. To cover their escape, to help fight the terrorists, Matsumoto sets off some of the explosions.
There you go.
And Vivy saves a young terrorist.
Yeah, and and this is where it was like the first time I finally heard Edwin's voice. This is like Ghost in the Shell. I'm like, okay. So that sequence where she saves the young terrorist, you get to see Vivy's blue blood all over because she's protecting this young terrorist from being trampled over a big wall piece. And yeah, that look in her eyes as you see her, I'm like, oh, it's just like the Major. I get it now.
Well, it did remind me of Ghost in the Shell. There's 2 moments within this arc that are very interesting about Vivy. One is when Matsumoto tries to install a combat program into her without her permission.
Yeah.
That was a very eye-opening moment for me, for Vivy as a character.
Yeah.
It was like, respect me. You're asking me to do this. Don't treat me like a tool. Treat me like an individual.
Yes.
Then there's the second moment where she sees the young terrorist, which is Yugo Kakitani.
Yeah.
He's about to die. She saves his life. And I think that that's an important moment for her because she doesn't want anybody to die.
No.
In her mind, it's like, how can I make somebody happy with my singing if they're dead?
Yeah, it's almost like losing your fan kind of thing.
Yeah, it's like I have to save him because he has to be at my concert so I can make him happy.
Yeah.
There's this simplistic thought process to it, but at the same time, it's something. It's a much more complicated thought process.
Very much so.
And so at first, I wasn't sure. I'm like, does she get it, or is this just an extension of her mission?
Yeah.
Or is it like growth on her part?
Yeah.
And those are two pivotal moments within this episode because she decides that she doubles down on she's reluctant to do this, but it's that moment where she sees the value in human life that makes her want to be part of this project even more.
Yeah. And I like how you brought that up too, because from here on out, she has her own morals. And like we mentioned earlier with like how she's trying to find out about herself ultimately, like, she's ultimately becoming more and more human, or even more human than the humans themselves. And that arc concludes because they do save the politician.
Yeah. It's she comes up with a plan to save the politician.
Yeah. But you would think like that would be like,
that would be it. But no.
Nope.
There comes the next moment.
Yes.
In Vivy's growth, and that's the death of her fan.
Yeah, her only fan.
Yeah, her only fan right now.
Yeah.
Who dies in a plane crash that Matsumoto knew about.
Yes.
And that angers Vivy to no end because she doesn't want. If she's going to save the terrorist because she wants to make him happy with her singing, that idea of losing her number one fan is devastating to Vivy. And Matsumoto actually takes over the body of a construction vehicle to fight Vivy.
Yeah, and it was a complete 180. That was the only criticism I have of the show, because you're not prepared at all.
Well, no. It shows you their relationship.
That too.
It's illustrative of their relationship.
Yeah.
And how far they have to go.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And for both of them to carry on pretty much on, it was like,
she doesn't want to see him.
No, that took me aback because I was like, man, that's kind of wicked. But there's a weird change of pace because the following episode, it's a time hop.
Yes, I mentioned that the arcs of this show focus on the central missions of the Singularity mission.
Yeah, literally the 100-year span.
Yeah, so each arc is separated by anywhere from 5 to 40 years.
Yes.
Because Matsumoto's designed to interact with Vivy in these points to come together and resolve these, to change history at these points. And each time they come together, it's like, wow.
Yeah, and Masemoto, like we mentioned, how he's flawed knowing everything. He doesn't know everything. He has to override the occurrences, as it were.
Yes.
He's like a built-in butterfly effect machine.
Well, it's like you said at the beginning. He's the Terminator.
Yeah.
But he's designed to save the future.
Yeah.
To stop the war from happening.
And any variances that come from it, too, for sure.
And so he's an AI with a mission where Vivy tries to, and we get into this later on, where when she's full-on diva, she wants to understand the root cause of the problem, where Matsumoto just wants a solution.
Yeah, and that's the two contrasts of robot as it is. So it's wonderfully placed. Yeah. And I didn't think that until you brought that up. So I'm like, okay, Edwin, I wholeheartedly agree.
The next mission, the Starrise mission, it's weird because you see Vivy on a space station, a hotel space station, interacting with AI that are based on her model, but that you can tell are emotionally more advanced than Vivy.
Yeah, and they're related. They're kind of like sisters, the younger sister prototypes. And they were kind of like the first ever clones of hers, if I'm not mistaken, because they've took care of the space station for a while.
Yeah, well, they're kind of like version 2.0. Yeah. They're based off of her. They're autonomous. They're a little bit more sophisticated than Vivy is. Yeah,
and they pretty much handled this thing. And they have 2 staff members, and there's a little backstory with that in regards that one of the sisters overtook the hotel in shady ways.
Well, there was so once again, Toke rears its ugly head.
Yeah, yeah.
The terrorist organization, and they've spread this rumor among the staff that Estella, the death of the human owner, was questionable.
Yeah.
It resolves itself as she was unable to save him.
Yeah.
And it turns out that the whole plot to discredit her is by Toke and the realization that Stella had a twin named Elizabeth
Yes.
who is posing as her. And it's Toke's, it's once again, they're trying to stop the progress that AI have made by destroying the sunrise, by causing the sunrise to essentially causing human victims.
In the hotel.
Yeah, from an AI's actions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's an interesting arc because, like I was mentioning, kind of alluding to earlier, how this future is pretty much almost there. And space traveling, last couple of years, yeah, I'm not a fan of it, but hey, hotel in space, who wouldn't want
We're gonna see that.
Yeah, I know.
That's gonna happen. You already have space tourism.
Yep.
With Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos trying to send as many people as they can to space.
Yeah.
And also, Elon Musk has been hard at work at trying to develop androids.
Yeah.
And I don't, dude, this stuff if we can survive climate change, some of this stuff, you might see it within the next 50 or 60 years.
Good chance in our lifetimes for sure.
What we're experiencing now, by the end of this century, I don't think we'll be able to recognize. It will be as different. I think it will be more different from what they saw in 1901 or 1920
Yeah.
compared to the way the century ended.
1920 Metropolis.
I think it will be much different. I think we won't be able to recognize that future as anything but science fiction.
I would agree. I would agree. And yeah, it's one of those arcs that you wouldn't think about twice about it. And until talking with Edwin here, I'm like, yeah.
Well, this arc, I think, shows, she encounters her fan's baby sister who has grown up, because this is, I believe this one's 5 years after after they save the politician. This arc, the sunrise arc. Yeah,
and it's almost like a blackout moment for Vivy, but Vivy, still doing her thing, and she's getting more of an audience with her singing during that stretch that Masemoto had to come back and be like, hey, remember me? Sorry.
Yeah,
but
she was not happy with that.
And he doesn't care, but at the same time, it's like, you got to do this. Yeah. And that's pretty much Matsumoto's ultimate pull. You're special. You're very special. Don't get me wrong. I could be a jerk, but hey, let's do this. This is for you and for me.
Yeah. And the focus is always on the relationships between the emotional relationships between these androids.
Yeah.
And who they are and who they want to be.
Yeah.
Even Elizabeth, who is recruited by Toke to destroy the sunrise, her main concern is whether or not she performed well for her, for her owner.
For who turns out to be Hugo, the one that Vivy saved in that building collapse.
Yep, he is her constant rival.
Yep. And almost like a constant rival, but also kind of like, I want to help you kind of rival in a weird way.
Well, I think that he makes Vivy sad.
Yeah.
I think that because she wants to save humanity, she wants to save this whole thing. The reason she decides to do this, the reason she decides to be a part of the Singularity project and save because she wants to save humanity.
Yeah,
she wants to save them. And Toke's insistence on destroying that, she's going to be part of the Singularity project, and it's the next mission, the next arc that really puts that to the test.
Yeah, and it's a crucial one, like the halfway point, because everything's coming together over these events. And I like how each episode previews what could happen kind of thing. They show near the end of the episode. And
well, because this show is an exploration of the different aspects of AI.
Yeah.
And how we'll respond to it, with the naming law, or with them running hotels,
and then AI is eventually marrying humans.
Yeah, and that's where the next arc comes into play, because Matsumoto shows up and he essentially there's an island that's off the
Yeah.
coast.
And it's a longer stretch, if I'm not mistaken, like 20, 25 years, 40
Yeah,
years,
this is I think it's like 20 years.
20 years.
Yeah, because when we see Hugo again, he's probably in his 40s.
Yeah, good call, good call. And then, yeah, like you mentioned, the island.
Yeah. The island, so the island has progressed much, much faster than Matsumoto predicted.
Yeah.
And they come into contact with a doctor, Dr. Tasuya Seki. And he is so the singularity point, the moment in time, the event that has caused Matsumoto to show up is that um, he's the first person to marry an android.
Yes.
He marries Grace, who is a nurse, who took care of him while he was in the hospital. And then later on, he encounters her again as a researcher when he's researching AI.
Yeah.
The crazy part about this is that the significance of their marriage in the first timeline is kind of erased by the events of the sunrise,
Yeah.
by the events that Matsumoto and Vivy caused on
To save that time
yeah,
line. Yeah.
to alter that timeline. It's altered their lives.
Yes.
Tetsuya has essentially lost Grace because of the sunrise incident.
Yeah.
They've seen her because she is one of the models, just like Estrella.
Or modeled after
Estella.
Vivy.
They're all essentially descendants of Vivy.
Yeah.
And so in this arc, in this incident, instead of them living happily ever after, Grace is taken and made the heart of the machine
Yeah.
that controls this island. Because the scientists are like, well, if this model is so advanced and can take care of things, and this will be a good job for her.
Agreed. Yeah.
But at the same time, this is his wife.
Yeah.
She's not just an android to him. This is his wife. This is the person that he cares about. And she's essentially mind, body, and soul. She's consumed by the island in order to control it.
Yeah.
There's nothing left.
No.
No. This arc is kind of like heartbreaking, not only for him, but for Vivy as well. Because she goes to the island and she's
greeted by these other androids named
yeah,
Yeah.
and they're trying to please humans.
Yeah.
They're trying to coexist and they're trying to please humans, but it's so advanced that it's dangerous.
Yeah. In this sequence, I couldn't help but think of Near Automata.
Yeah.
Like the world is gorgeous and it's almost like dystopian, beauty. Near Automata is like that's what it's recognized for. And like I mentioned with 86, the empty future, the scope of your mind, where it's only you in this grand world with robots, ideally.
The island definitely speaks to that.
Yeah, yeah.
When she has to destroy them, this is another moment where Vivy has to decide what to do. And she tells the doctor, she's like, look, I'm going to save my audience. I'm going to save humanity, even if that means I have to destroy other AI to do it. And, she's at war.
Yeah.
This is Vivy at war. And she succeeds. And the music, oh my God, the music for that scene was amazing.
Exactly.
When her and Matsumoto are fighting the drones, it's very telling of the ending.
Yeah.
There's a lot of similarities between this and the ending. And we see this play out again and again. And it's the music for that scene is just amazing.
Yeah, it has like an epic feel, then a guitar solo, like
yeah.
It reminded me a little bit of Top Gun.
Yeah, there's definitely that. But I like it too because it doesn't take away from you get the action, you get the epic feel of this.
Yeah, yeah.
There's definitely that, but it doesn't take away from the gravity of what's happening and the realization that, yeah, Vivy has to go kill this man's wife.
Yeah, unfortunately. And she's locked up underneath the island, connected with all these robots.
When Vivy does it, she realizes that she's kind of ending Grace's suffering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, with the doctor as well, he knows the deal, unfortunately.
This arc ends in a kind of a heartbreaking, devastating way. But it's also a moment for Vivy because the doctor kills himself.
Yeah.
She's lost somebody.
Yeah.
And it's because of her actions.
Yeah.
Not intentionally. I mean, Grace was already gone.
Yeah.
Vivy did free her from that prison that she had been put in. but she also killed this man's wife
Yeah.
in order to save the future. She's become the Terminator, and she shuts down
Yeah.
because it's like she realizes the horror of what she has to do.
Yeah, and symbolically, like as she blacks out, there's red blood and blue blood. Blue blood being the android blood, and it
Red, yeah.
symbolically, like she's torn between being a robot and human.
Well, not well, she's had to. How can she make everyone happy with her singing if she's the cause of death?
Yeah,
I
good
mean,
call.
that's like, how do I process this?
Yeah,
And she shuts down
yes,
because she really doesn't know how to deal with it.
yeah, and she shut down for the following arc a little bit longer,
Yeah.
like 40 years, I think.
Yeah. Well, we're introduced to a new character because Vivy is rebooted.
Yeah,
Her memories are still there, but they're kind of partitioned off.
yeah,
And we get this new character, Diva, who becomes the famous songstress.
yeah, and her events and her programming pretty much make her like number one in the world.
Well, she achieves everything that Vivy wanted to do. And Matsumoto, I think the ending of the marriage arc changes Matsumoto as well
Yeah, as well. Yes, yes.
because he essentially wants to leave Vivy out of this.
Yeah, it feels like he's been rebooted too because he's full on cube. He's made that change for a while, but it's also like you can tell by the design in his demeanor that he just wants to make sure Vivi's okay.
Well, there's the advancement.
Yeah.
Well, he takes care of her.
Yeah,
Her body's damaged, but he takes her and he repairs her. And
yeah,
when she's rebooted as Diva, it's a separate entity. It's a separate, kind of almost a separate consciousness that is like taking care of Vivy
yeah.
while she's in her kind of like comatose state.
Yep, yep. But she's also a full on idol. How this sequence plays out is that
The Ophelia Arc.
yeah, the Ophelia arc, but it's also astounding for the show because we can't stress it enough. Singing is important, performance is important.
Absolutely.
Yeah, from each beginning, you see her getting more and more with her crowd. This time, she's got an epic festival dedicated to
Well, it's the Zodiac.
the Zodiac Festival for androids that sing. And Ophelia is one of those other aspiring singers. She's actually a fan of Vivy, and she learned from Vivy.
And this is a moment where this is another singularity moment where Matsumoto has come to stop Ophelia from killing herself,
Yes.
where she becomes the first android that commits suicide, causing other androids to commit suicide, and people questioning. This leads to the advancement of AI politics because
Yeah.
it's like, if androids are able to kill themselves, then that must mean that they have emotions and feelings and a
Yes.
soul. And so it helps in AI relations. And it's Matsumoto's weird task to stop that,
Yeah.
to keep that separation so that there's not the advancement.
Yeah. And almost tied in with our last review with 86, because with that show, how the media portrays robots as only robots. The drone warfare is that's only for the drones with the humans inside, hiding that fact. And with this one, with Vivy, how androids are becoming more and more human.
Yeah.
And we gotta keep it at bay.
Yeah.
Sadly. So there's like acceptance with that almost. And it's kind of, and thinking about it now, it's twisted. It's very twisted.
At first, the first time I watched it, this wasn't my favorite arc.
No.
But then rewatching it, this kind of because this is oddly the most action orientated arc.
Yeah, and
in a weird way.
And it's zany TT. It actually reminds me of Fifth Element in a weird way.
Well, yeah, there's definitely because the performance aspects are the focus of it.
And it's a good change of pace in a weird way.
It's very much a change of pace
Yeah.
from what we were getting before, because this one feels a lot more grounded
Extremely.
than the other
And the stakes are a little bit lesser, but it's more personal.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a quieter, more focused story.
Yeah.
And I think this show shines because you don't it's a lot more, like I said, grounded.
Yeah.
Because you get like dressing rooms and you get it's kind of weird because it's very much like it doesn't feel like the future.
No.
At all.
It's similar psychopath, similar to Innovative. Like it could happen right next door kind of thing.
Yeah, you feel like these are just everyday people interacting with each other, and it's very deceptive.
Yeah, because
it's very deceptive.
Because the arc, it has Ophelia dealing with her manager, who's an android, and his name's Antonio.
Yeah, her partner.
Yeah, her partner, and you get this exchange in the beginning where Antonio's just hoping for the best, but Yeah, he's kind of scheming a little bit.
To say that he's determined
Yeah, very,
is an understatement.
very.
He's obsessed and he's angry. Once again, here's Toke. Toke shows up,
Toke, toke, toke. Dun,
but
dun,
in a
dun.
very different way than we were expecting,
Yes.
and for a very different reason
Yep.
than we were expecting.
Oh yeah.
We get the terrorist, we get Hugo's motivation for becoming a member of Toke, the death of his android music teacher.
Yeah. Of all things.
So throughout the episode, Diva, who is essentially the new identity in the rebooted Vivy body,
Yeah.
who has become this famous songstress, is performing at this, and she meets Ophelia. She encounters Matsumoto, who she doesn't know who he is. And so there's a reconnection between the two.
Turn the page kind of thing.
Not only a turn the page, but an introduction into, like, okay, we're going to work together to save this girl.
Yeah.
And it's
new
much
purpose.
yeah, it's a new purpose. And so as the episode plays out, you get the two dynamics of the two characters, where Diva wants to find out why this girl wants to kill herself.
Yeah.
To Matsumoto, it doesn't matter. It's like stopping her from killing herself is his main, that's what he's there for.
Yeah.
As it turns out, Toke has talked to Ophelia, who isn't Ophelia at all, but her manager, who has taken her body to perform with her voice because he feels that her voice is amazing and should be appreciated by everyone.
Yeah.
But it can't be, and so he takes over.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's one of my very few criticisms of the show. When it turns into a Ghost in the Shell moment with the robots and they just don't have the motions just right, I didn't feel like the tension there in a weird way. Like it's almost like I've seen it before, but it's also, I don't know, at that point it did get a little silly.
I liked it. I liked it a lot, actually. Like I said, my first viewing, I didn't like this arc, and I think it was mainly because of the focus on Ophelia and her depression. But as this arc plays out, on my second viewing, I understood what was going on a lot more.
Yeah, and this is just me nitpicking because, like, that stubbornness I mentioned earlier of Ghost in the Shell, like it's not Ghost in the Shell, it's not Ghost in the Shell, and it doesn't have to be Ghost in the Shell, Jack.
No. Yeah, it doesn't.
Yeah.
It really, yeah.
It does it in a way where it highlights Vivy trying to find meaning, and that's beautiful.
Yeah.
And this arc is crucial because it shows that Vivy does not want this to happen.
Yeah.
And even though the ridiculous things aside, during a music festival,
Diva doesn't want this to happen.
Diva specifically, good call, Edwin.
So we get kind of to one of the central questions of this show.
Yeah.
And that's brought about by the terrorist, Hugo, because he has essentially put part of himself into an android body.
Yeah.
Because he has one question. And he creates a virus. He joins forces with Antonio and Ophelia to take out Matsumoto because he has one goal. He has to get to Vivy, but Vivy's gone.
Yeah.
So he creates a virus that destroys Diva, the persona that has taken over Vivy's body, because he wants Vivy. He wants to talk to Vivy. He understands that Vivy is different from other androids. And he has a question for her. And his question is about his android music teacher. And his question is that why? Why did his android music teacher go against his programming and sacrifice himself to save Hugo's life?
Yeah.
It's like, how can they have two missions? And he understands that Vivy has two missions.
Yeah.
Vivy has the mission to save, to sing, to make everyone happy with their singing.
Yeah.
But also to save humanity.
It's a singularity. Yep.
Yeah, and it's Hugo's obsession with the death of his music teacher that drives him to do this and brings Vivy back.
Yeah.
To ask that question, a question that Vivy doesn't even know the answer to herself.
Yeah, and the themes are resonant. They're there, and you don't overthink it. That's why I respect this show a lot, because it's very straightforward, and those questions are just subtle enough where you don't have to over dilute yourself with.
But the questions are the most important thing in the show.
Well, yes, but
because you don't have to. They don't spend their time being as philosophical as other shows.
There you go. Yeah.
This is not psychopaths.
Yes.
Yeah. They don't spend a lot of time waxing philosophical. The philosophy is left to you.
Yeah. There you go.
Um,
Good call.
like you said, it's not the focus, but the questions themselves are the questions that the creators are raising.
Yes. Good
It's
call.
like, what is, and it plays out at the end.
Yeah.
We spend the next, I don't know how many
It
years.
was a little bit longer, and mind you, we're getting close to the 100.
Yeah.
And Vivy, even Matsumoto teasing her being in a museum, she ends up being in a museum
Yeah.
on her own accord because she knows her purpose mostly as a singer, and she promised herself never to sing again after the dealing with Ophelia and giving that choice, as it were. And you get to see
She essentially retires.
she essentially retires, but you also see Vivy in her true form in a weird way. And I was mentioning this to Edwin, especially with these last few episodes. She is beyond gorgeous. Something about her being so at peace with herself in this small old museum, this empty futuristic museum, and being one of the display, showing her work and talking to kids, what she was, and showing that importance too. And that's almost a beautiful way to conclude the episodes or the show itself, is because she completed the Singularity project as it is.
Yeah, it's almost like in her retirement, she's given the time to reflect on who she is
Yeah.
and what all of this means.
Yes.
And it's in that moment. So she meets a young Dr. Matsumoto.
Yes. The one who created.
She meets him as a child,
Yeah.
and she essentially spends his lifetime trying to create a song because she holds his baby, and when she holds his baby, there's definitely, I almost think, like a recommitment to the mission
That and something in that
inside of her.
Yeah, that she always questions. She sings these songs. She knows all these songs, and it was a beautiful sequence there because she's in the archive, and we didn't really talk about much about the archive, but it's a thing
which is important.
which is important, but it's also kind of like one of those things you don't think too hard about.
Yeah.
It's this like network of like knowledge where these androids get their information, how they communicate too.
What's their backup as well?
Yeah, and Vivy the whole time is asking, "Oh, how many songs have androids sung?" In the archive answers, or I forget the name. Navi answers.
No, Navi is the computer.
Navi's a computer.
Yeah.
The archive answers, over 500 million songs, something ridiculous. And then Vivy asks a simple question: how many songs have androids written? And the archive's like 0.
None.
Yeah. So basically, Vivy's like, you know what? I'm gonna make a song. She got a piano right there. It's almost like a slice of the anime. She's in this classroom, music classroom.
And that's when you get into what I think the creators, why this show is what it is.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because why they decided to forego somebody like the Major.
Yeah.
And why they chose somebody like Diva, and why music is so important to this show.
Yeah.
Because at the end of they chose it because this show is about imagination,
Creativity.
about creativity.
Yes.
The power of creation, and how music, you use the imagination to create new pieces of music, and how that's something that's fundamentally human.
Yeah. And yeah, you would think that would be like a nice conclusion, but I do admit, even though these are great episodes, my favorite episodes of the bunch, it's still unsettling because it's still the Singularity project. And then even Matsumoto, who visits Vivy in the museum, he's like, I'll see you next year. Like, we still got 100 years.
Yeah.
Wink, wink.
He's like, I'm still around.
Yeah. So during this process, something's up with the archive.
Yeah. So Vivy wakes up. Vivy not wakes up, but she comes out of the archive to the realization that people are dying.
Yes.
The building is on fire. Her project that with Matsumoto, their attempts have failed. And there's a reason it's failed. Because their enemy was there all along.
Oh, yes.
Hiding in plain sight as the archive.
Yeah, and this tallest building in that area, too.
He always said that would be the progress of whether or not they had succeeded.
Yeah.
And they failed.
Yes.
They failed miserably because what they didn't understand is the reason that the androids and the humans, the androids decided to go to war with the humans, is the archive had achieved sentience.
Yes.
Its own sentience. And through watching all of the interactions that androids had with humans, it decided that humans were no longer able to create, that they had become dependent on the androids, and that they were no longer able to evolve.
Yeah, you were completely shocked. Here we go,
Yeah.
because this is it. And it was a great twist, and that's like the cherry on top with this anime, because the next three are dived into this final conclusion.
Yeah, the final arc is the battle to save humanity,
Yeah,
to save the future.
and sure enough, it's everything you could think of, and everything Matrix, everything Ghost in the Shell,
There's even more time travel.
more time travel, because it comes to a point where Vivy, she encounters the leader of Toke.
Yeah.
Now, remember Toke as like that baddie, the terrorist group that wanted to.
Yeah, and it's changed over time.
Is evolved.
Yeah, it's evolved. Instead of wanting to destroy androids, they've found that they want to coexist.
Yeah.
They're the more moderate arm of the Toke terrorists.
Yeah.
Where they want to exist, they want to find a way to coexist with androids.
Yeah, and then one of the characters, she's the direct descendant of Yugo. Her name is Yui Katikani.
Yeah,
and she becomes like this Charles Xavier type on a wheelchair
leader of the Toke. Yeah,
and her assistant is from another character that we didn't think we would see again, Elizabeth.
There's two moments within this arc that are, I think, the key moments for this. There's a moment where Vivy is talking to the archive. Well, there's three maybe.
Yeah. Okay.
There's a moment where Vivy is talking to the archive, and the archive has revealed its plan.
Yeah.
And it gives Vivy the choice of what to do, because Vivy has shown the ability to create.
Yeah.
She's shown that she has an imagination. This is part of evolution.
Yeah.
So she essentially gives the future of humanity to Vivy, and Vivy fails.
Oh.
That's the second moment. Vivy fails because she's still, after 100 years, her quest to discover what a heart is has failed.
Yeah.
And this leads to the most important moment, I think, in the entire show. And it's a moment between her and Matsumoto that happens on the dock right before they're going to go and fight. She reveals the fact that she's heartbroken because she just didn't know what it means to sing from the heart.
Yeah.
And he tells her, he's like, well, why do you keep asking everybody?
Yeah.
He says, what does it mean to you? And it's in that moment where he kind of gives her the keys to the kingdom. And she realizes that what heart means to her is all of her memories.
Yeah.
Every moment, the bad and the good.
Yeah.
And it's in that moment that she's able to sing from her heart, because it's all of the experiences, all the pain and the joy and all the people that she's met and all the everything.
Yeah.
That to her heart is her memories and her
Yeah.
experiences and how the emotions that they've given her. And she's able to sing. And in that moment, between her and Matsumoto, they're able to shut down all the AI.
Yeah, and it's
And
wonderfully
save the world.
and it's wonderfully placed. And it's almost like finding that ghost in the shell, like I alluded to earlier with the Major. And that fascinating thing about Ghost in the Shell is that question lingers on, because it gives that sense of like the future is still upon us kind of thing. The androids are not here yet, but what if they do find that consciousness? What if they do find their souls? And Vivy does a complete opposite. And my stubborn, disliking of like, it's not Ghost in the Shell. Blah, blah, blah. It's even in its own right, its own beauty, and music.
I think absolutely.
Yeah, and the music motif, everything else between with creativity and memories and finding your path along the way with these friends and family, it's profound.
Mhm.
And
It's a journey.
it's
for
a
her.
journey.
Mhm.
And this didn't finish my top 10 of last year because I didn't see it. I only saw the first episode because the first episode I saw, it was too violent. I'm like, not yet. Edwin kept up with it and he loved it. And here we are. It should have been my top 10.
Yeah. I don't. It wasn't in mine. It wasn't in my top.
But it was your
5,
favorite sci-fi.
But it was. I did mention it. I did a special mention when we were going through our top 5. I did stop and say I wanted, because it was hard. It was like one of the only sci-fi shows that I watched last
and
year.
it was not too many. And 86, like we just mentioned, is technically the other one.
Yeah. So I did do a special mention for Vivy.
Yes.
I think I was our fall catch up.
No, it was best of the year.
Okay, yeah, best of the year. Yeah, I did a special mention just for Vivy. And yeah, I think that you guys should watch this show. I think that you'll enjoy it. Uh, I hope that that you're able to take away a lot from it, from both of these shows about the human condition and where we are and where we're going, and what it means to be human, and what it means, what the world will hold if we can end war and this division that we're feeling, and just stop these things.
I know.
Yeah.
And once again, I can't help but shout out to the fans because that's the only reason we're watching this. Because over the Crunchyroll Awards and being highlighted for best art, best music, best anime. Oh my God. Thank you.
Their love of these shows that brought them to our attention, and the love of the creators who created these
Yeah,
shows
which is astounding.
and
Yeah.
did such a magnificent job on both of these shows,
Yeah.
story wise, animation wise, music wise. It's like two very solid shows that are worth checking out.
Oh,
So
yeah.
please, guys, watch these. I think you'll enjoy them.
Vivy and
And the
the 86.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. We're going to be taking a break. Coming up, we're going to have voice connections and our general recommends. Stay tuned.
And now we'll do a part of the show that we like to call connections, where we look at the connections of the voice actors and studios of the shows we just talked about. Jack, I'll let you go first.
Yeah, we're doing a 1-2 combo today. We're going to mention studio and then an actor in the anime. For our first studio, we're going to do Wit Studio, quite popular in the anime community. It's had resonance, but it's one of those things. The last couple years, people are really taking factor with studios. Wit Studio, fun fact, his first project was Attack on Titan.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it's also done Rolling Girls, Seraph of the End, The Ancient Magus Bride, Vinland Saga, fun fact, I didn't know that, Vivy this past year, and also one of my favorites from this past year, Ranking of Kings.
Oh, nice,
Yeah,
Jack.
and they're also doing, for this coming year, Spy X Family.
Which looks exciting.
Yeah, and this other one from a Netflix production called Bubble.
Cool.
And yeah, I've heard of it. It's like one of those things where I want to be surprised when I watch it. It reminds me of the recent Netflix production Gravity Kids that just released. So,
Okay.
yeah.
We'll have to check those out.
Yeah.
And so for my studio, A1 Pictures Incorporated, they've done Kaguya-sama Love is War.
Yeah. And
They'll be doing season 3.
I can't wait.
They also did Warlords of Sigafrida, which I really liked, How Not to Raise a Boring Girlfriend, and Interviews with Monster Girls.
Okay, I like that one. That's a fun one.
Yeah.
It's almost like We Never Learned Bubblekin.
It is.
A little way, yeah.
There's similarities.
Yeah.
Yeah. They also did Blue Exorcist.
Oh, cool.
Which is a really cool show.
Yeah. And then for my voice actress, I decided to choose Atsumi Tanizaki. And she is the glorious voice of Vivy. And I believe she did the singing too. And it's like, okay, I wouldn't mind buying an album from her. And those are some of the best parts of the show.
They really were.
Yeah. And her other roles include Juno from Beastars. She's also, speaking of We Never Learned Bubblekin, she plays the character Chiyoko in We Never Learned Bubblekin, and she's also in our first ever episode of How Not to Summon a Demon Lord. She is the character Glebsklam. Glebsklam? Was that her name?
I don't remember.
Glebsklam.
What?
I didn't know that was her name. She's the Lolly Demon Lord in that one. So
Just go with that.
Just go with
we'll
that.
go with that. She's the Lolly Demon Lord. That works for
Yeah.
That works for that show. Definitely. My connections for voice actor this time is the voice actors that voiced Shin in the 86. Shoya Chiba was the Japanese voice actor. He had roles in Horimiya, Platinum End, Cells at Work, Fire Force, and Gulpiner.
Nice, nice.
For the English VA, Billy Kametz, he voiced one of Jack's favorites, Nafumi, in Rising the Shield Hero.
Yeah, yeah.
But he also played Dr. Tatsuya Sakai in Vivy.
Yeah, literal connection there. So excellent placement for sure.
And now we'll be doing recommendations where we recommend either music or books or games that are anime related. I've been reading in preparation for something special and secret. I've been reading Starting Point, a collection of
interviews
with Hayao Miyazaki.
Yeah, oh yeah.
It's very interesting. So these are collected interviews from different magazines, sketches that he did, memos, notes about the different Studio Ghibli movies that he's done, that he's created. And you get into his thought process of why he wanted to be an animator. He talks about running. He talks about all different kinds of things. It's very interesting. It sheds a whole new light on him as a creator and his viewpoints. And this covers the years 1979 through 1996. So his early career right up until the founding of Studio Ghibli.
Yeah, and there's a part 2 as well, and that's mid 90s to later part of 2010, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's kind of charming. He's totally in the moment with these interviews.
Because,
yeah, he's very technical. He talks about more of the animation side of things, moods, motions. Even like in early parts, he talks about motions of a car and his personal feelings with it. And it's like, if you're a geek like us, it's perfect.
Well, you can see a lot of the things that he talks about reflected in the movies that he does, and I won't get into a lot of this because we're saving this for later.
Oh yeah. Yep. But also it's a key factor in what we're trying to do too, because we're trying to get the ethos of the man.
Yes, we're trying to get after that for a special surprise that will be coming up later this year.
Oh yeah, for sure. Then for my recommends, I have the music for Vivy, the composer at least. I'm going to cover the music of 86 and Vivy. For 86 is a tag team effort by Haruyuki Sawano and Kota Yamato. I believe it's one of their first ever collaborations together, and they were nominated for Best Music through the Crunchyroll Anime Awards. To be honest, it could have won.
I agree.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I'm surprised that revisiting it now, like doing some factors, like just give them courtesy prize, or at least more future animes for me to check out.
Definitely.
And then for the music for Vivy, which is the main theme for this show, is by Satori Kusaki, who has had a lengthy career. He's done Melancholy of Haruhi Suzumi and Beastars.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and Beastars is underrated with this music. I have listened to a few snippets. So yeah, for sure, one of those things where these animes are that cool and epic, and the little things like the music you wouldn't expect, but it's almost like just as important as the art.
Yeah, Vivy, especially in Vivy, I mean, that's kind of the whole point.
Yeah.
The music, the creativity, the imagination, and the music lives up to it. There are moments where it's like, I'm blown away by how well the music interacts with what's going on the scene, the score. And that opening and closing is like, wow.
It's also a contrast because both are futuristic, but they go back to the roots. They're both classical. Yeah. Especially 86. 86, it builds up your feeling like you're watching an old-timey movie. And Vivy, of course, with the future, idol, sing songstress with, you're supposed to expect like techno or even industrial, like similar Ghost in a Shell. No, classical, trained performance. Yeah. It's gorgeous.
I mean, you could say that the one weakness is that they don't try to be experimental with the music.
In a way, I agree.
But for me, it's a very minor, like, I'm like, all right, I'm fine with that. They're not trying to break new ground on that.
Yeah.
But what they do is still absolutely amazing and gorgeous.
And we can't recommend it enough. And yeah, we hope to get it going here, and just can't wait to share. We can't help but mention, thank you for checking in with this episode, the fan special. So hey,
yeah, thank you, fan and nomination special. Thank you for stopping by. Like, listen, subscribe, download,
follow.
Yeah, share this with your friends. We love you guys. We want to hear your feedback, and we'll continue to do what we do at the 950 Club.
Goodbye.
Bye. fight.